Hello, everyone. Before we dive into my story, I want to ask, where are you watching from today? Maybe New York, Chicago, or somewhere else across this beautiful country? I'd love to hear. Now, let me tell you about something that happened to me recently. Something unexpected, emotional, and a little mysterious. Something I never imagined would happen at my age. It all began on a quiet evening. I had just settled into my favorite chair by the window with a cup of chamomile tea, the kind that warms you from the inside out. The sky outside was painted in soft shades of orange and pink, and I could hear the distant hum of cars and occasional laughter from neighbors. Life was peaceful, as it usually is. And then my phone buzzed. It was a message from my grandson, Alex. "Grandma, can you come to the secret room? I need you." My heart skipped a beat. Alex is grown now in his early 20s, independent and often busy with his own life. We talk, laugh, and sometimes argue, but we've always shared a special bond. I couldn't ignore his message. There was something urgent in his words, something I didn't fully understand. I followed his instructions through the familiar hallways of the old house, the soft carpet muffling my steps. The scent of old wood and polished surfaces welcomed me, comforting and familiar, like an embrace from the past. And then I reached the door he had mentioned. It was locked. I knocked gently. "Alex, are you in there?" There was a pause, and then I heard his voice, slightly breathless. "Grandma, I didn't think you'd come so fast. Don't worry, I locked it. I needed to talk to you. Just you." I felt a flutter of concern mixed with curiosity. The air outside was warm and still, but inside that small room, everything seemed to change. I stepped closer and pressed my ear against the door. His voice, usually confident and teasing, carried a vulnerability that made my chest tighten. "Grandma, I don't know how to say this. I need you here tonight. It's important." I hesitated for a moment, but the trust I had in him outweighed my confusion. I found the spare key tucked in the drawer and unlocked the door. What I saw inside made me pause. The room was small but cozy, lined with bookshelves filled with volumes we had collected over the years. A single lamp cast a golden glow, making the space feel intimate and safe. Alex looked up at me, and for a moment, I saw him not as my grandson, not as the young man I worried about daily, but as someone seeking comfort, guidance, and understanding. He whispered, "Thank you for coming," and it struck me how grown up his voice sounded, how earnest and fragile at the same time. We spent the first hours talking about everything and nothing, the kind of conversations that seemed to stretch time and space. He shared worries I had never known, doubts that had been tucked away behind his usual bravado. I listened, offering warmth, reassurance, and sometimes silent understanding. The night deepened outside. Stars scattered across the sky like tiny beacons of hope. Eventually, the conversation shifted. There was a closeness between us, a quiet connection that didn't need words. I noticed the small gestures, the way he leaned slightly closer when he spoke, the way his hand brushed mine ever so slothfully when reaching for a notebook. I felt a deep sense of protectiveness and affection, but also a recognition of the emotional depth he carried inside. Time seemed to slow. Hours passed unnoticed, and the world outside ceased to matter. We were two souls sharing a space, discovering new layers of understanding and mutual respect. The kind of night that leaves a mark, not because of loud declarations, but because of the quiet, subtle truths revealed in gentle glances and shared silences. As the first hints of dawn crept through the curtains, painting the room in pale lavender and gold, I realized how profoundly this night had shifted something inside me. I felt closer to Alex than ever, a bond strengthened not just by family ties, but by shared vulnerability and trust. We had spent the night alone, yes, but we were not lonely.
We were discovering each other, layer by layer, heart by heart. When we finally stepped out of the secret room, the morning light seemed different, almost magical. I held on to the feeling of connection, knowing that nights like this don't come often, but when they do, they leave a lasting imprint on your soul.
The morning light was soft but persistent, filtering through the thin curtains and stretching across the wooden floor. I could hear Alex moving quietly around the house, probably making himself a cup of coffee or trying to shake off the lingering tension from the night. I stayed in the secret room for a few moments longer, letting the warmth of what had happened settle into me. It wasn't just a memory. It felt like a revelation, a glimpse into a side of Alex I hadn't fully known before. When I finally emerged, he was sitting at the kitchen table, his eyes tired but bright, a half-smile playing on his lips. "Good morning," he said, in that soft, deliberate tone he always uses when he wants to convey sincerity. There was something about the way he looked at me, direct yet careful, that made my heart skip. Not fear, not confusion, but a strange protective warmth. We spoke over coffee, the aroma filling the quiet kitchen. Our conversation was casual at first, mundane topics about work, old family stories, and small jokes, but the undercurrent of last night's closeness hummed beneath every word. I noticed the subtle ways we mirrored each other, the way our hands reached for the mug at the same time, the small, almost imperceptible sighs of relief when our eyes met. As the day went on, I realized that the night had opened something deeper in both of us. Alex began to share things he had never mentioned, dreams he had long buried, fears he kept behind a mask of confidence, and the struggles he faced with feeling understood. Listening to him, I felt the weight of my own experiences as well, the regrets, the triumphs, the moments that shaped who I am today. We moved through the day in a rhythm that felt natural, yet charged with the quiet electricity of mutual discovery. I watched him while he worked on a small project at the table, his focus so intense, his determination so visible. There was a vulnerability in his concentration that tugged at me, a reminder that even adults still carry pieces of the child we once knew. I wanted to offer guidance, to protect, but I also wanted to honor his independence and the trust he had shown in inviting me into that secret space. Lunch was simple, a shared sandwich, laughter spilling over from small private jokes, and yet even this felt significant. There was no hurry, no need to rush back into the outside world. We had our own small universe, confined within the walls of this house. And for the first time, I saw Alex not just as my grandson, but as a person navigating his own complexities, seeking connection and finding it in unexpected ways. The afternoon brought quiet reflection. We sat together in the living room, the soft light cast in shadows that danced on the walls. I spoke about my own life, the challenges and moments of joy I had experienced, the mistakes that taught me more than the victories ever could have. Alex listened intently, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just absorbing. It struck me how rare this openness was, how precious this kind of vulnerability could be between two people who share blood but had never shared their hearts so fully. As evening approached, I felt a shift. The intimacy we had nurtured throughout the day was subtle, almost invisible, but it was there. A closeness built on trust, mutual respect, and the recognition of each other's humanity. When our eyes met, there was an unspoken understanding. We were in this moment together, and it mattered deeply. The night came again, but this time it was different. We didn't need the secret room to be close. We had found the connection within ourselves, within our shared experiences and conversations.
But still, when Alex suggested we revisit that space, it felt natural, a continuation rather than a repetition. The room, with its familiar books and soft lighting, became a vessel for reflection, a place where we could honor what had begun the night before and let it grow without pressure or expectation. By the end of Chapter 2, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. This night and day had given me a new understanding of Alex, not just as my grandson, but as a complex, thoughtful, and deeply feeling person. And as we finally stepped out into the cool night air together, I realized that some of life's most meaningful experiences come not from grand gestures, but from the quiet, patient unfolding of trust and emotional honesty. The next morning arrived with a gentle hush, the kind that makes you want to linger in bed just a little longer, savoring the silence before the world fully wakes. I woke to find Alex already awake, sitting near the window, staring out at the soft mist that hovered over the garden. He looked smaller somehow, lost in thought, and my heart ached with a mixture of protectiveness and curiosity. "Morning," I said softly, careful not to startle him. He turned, and the faint smile he gave me was almost shy, a hint of the vulnerability I had come to recognize as uniquely his. "Morning," he replied. There was something in his tone that told me he had something on his mind, something he hadn't yet voiced. We spent the early hours quietly, drinking tea and sharing the comfortable stillness that comes when words aren't necessary. I watched him stretch and yawn, the light catching the soft angles of his face, and I realized just how much I had come to value these moments of unspoken connection. The night and day we had spent together had created a delicate intimacy, a bridge between generations built on trust and openness. Later, as I helped him organize some old photographs in the living room, he paused, holding a picture of us from years ago. "Grandma, I've been thinking a lot about family, not just the easy parts, but the complicated ones. And last night, being with you, it made me see things differently." I nodded, feeling a warmth spread through me. "I understand. It's hard to truly see someone, to understand their thoughts and feelings until you're willing to share your own." He smiled, but it wasn't just a smile. It was the kind that carries a depth of emotion, gratitude, and relief all at once. "I've always admired you, Grandma, but I never realized how much I could learn from you, how much you could teach me simply by being here, listening, and caring." The afternoon unfolded with a gentle rhythm. We moved from one room to another, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes comfortable silences. The air was thick with a sense of discovery, a realization that our relationship had transformed. Alex was no longer just my grandson. He was a companion in reflection, a young man navigating the complexities of life, and I was someone who could provide guidance, understanding, and an unwavering presence. As evening drew near, the house seemed to hold its breath. We found ourselves once again near the secret room. Alex hesitated at the threshold, and I saw the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "Do you want to go in?" I asked gently. He nodded, and we stepped inside together. The room felt different this time, not because it had changed, but because we had. The familiarity of the space was comforting, but it was the emotional resonance, the shared experiences, the quiet confessions, and the mutual respect that gave it new meaning. We talked for hours, delving into memories, fears, and aspirations. Each revelation brought us closer, not in a way that was overwhelming, but in a way that was tender and profound. The boundaries of age and expectation seemed to blur, replaced by a pure human connection, the kind that can only be forged through openness, patience, and trust. At one point, Alex reached out to take my hand, not in desperation or need, but as a gesture of solidarity and understanding. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice steady, "for being here, for seeing me." Tears pricked my eyes, not from sadness, but from the sheer intensity of the moment. I squeezed his hand, feeling the quiet power of shared vulnerability. "I've always seen you, Alex. Always. And I always will." Night fell again, wrapping the world in darkness, but inside the secret room, there was a glow, not from lamps or candles, but from the bond we had nurtured. It was a glow that came from trust, empathy, and the deep satisfaction of being truly known and accepted. The following morning arrived with a crispness that made me take a deep breath and savor the quiet. The house was still, the garden outside glistening with dew, and the memory of the nights we had spent together lingered like a gentle hum. I found Alex in the kitchen again, sipping coffee and gazing thoughtfully out the window. "Good morning," I said softly. He turned toward me, his eyes reflecting a calm I hadn't seen before. "Morning," he replied. There was a pause, and then he added, "I've been thinking a lot about last night, about everything we've shared." I nodded, sensing the weight of his words. "It's been a special time, Alex. Not many people get to experience this kind of connection." He smiled, but it was tinged with vulnerability. "I know, and I want to remember it, not just as a memory, but as a part of how I approach life from now on. Being with you, it's changed how I see myself and the people around me." We spent the morning quietly, savoring the sense of completeness that comes from shared understanding. The earlier tension had softened into a comforting warmth, and the emotional closeness we had cultivated now felt natural, like a steady heartbeat beneath the surface of daily life. As the day wore on, Alex and I ventured outside, taking a slow walk through the garden. The sun cast a golden hue over the flowers and trees, and the air was filled with the gentle rustling of leaves. We walked side by side, the silence between us not empty, but full of unspoken words, shared respect, and the quiet knowledge of a bond strengthened by trust and vulnerability. We returned to the house as the afternoon sun began to fade, and I noticed a change in him. Alex carried himself with a subtle confidence, a reflection of the emotional growth we had nurtured together. He was still my grandson, yes, but he had become more reflective, more open, more in touch with his heart. That evening, we found ourselves once again near the secret room. This time, there was no hesitation, no uncertainty. We stepped inside together, not because we needed to escape the world, but because the room had become a symbol of everything we had discovered about each other. It was a space of honesty, a sanctuary of connection, a place where emotions could flow freely without judgment or restraint. We talked long into the night, sharing hopes, dreams, and fears with a candidness that left us both feeling lighter. The room seemed to embrace our words, holding them gently as if to say, "Here you are safe. Here you are understood." At one point, Alex turned to me with a look of gratitude that went beyond words. "Grandma," he said, "thank you for everything, for listening, for being patient, for just being you." I felt a lump in my throat, overwhelmed by the depth of our journey together. "Alex," I replied softly, "thank you for trusting me,
for letting me see you. Truly, that is a gift I will always treasure. As the night drew to a close, we sat side by side in comfortable silence. The bond between us had evolved from family ties into something deeper, something enduring. It was a connection built not on obligation, but on choice, on the willingness to be vulnerable, to listen, to care, and to grow together. When we finally left the secret room, the world outside felt subtly changed. The stars twinkled in the night sky, but it was the light within us that shone brightest, a light born of trust, understanding, and the profound intimacy of shared hearts. By the end of this experience, I realized that true connection isn't about grand gestures or dramatic moments. It's about patience, empathy, and the courage to open yourself fully to another person. That night, Alex and I had discovered a new dimension of our relationship, one that would continue to guide and nurture us for years to come. And as I sit here now, reflecting on everything we shared, I feel a deep sense of peace and gratitude. Life has a way of surprising us, of offering moments of profound intimacy when we least expect them. And when it does, all you can do is embrace it, cherish it, and allow it to leave a lasting mark on your heart.